ESPN is predicting a bounce back season for the Oklahoma Sooners, but are there multiple games that they could lose in their efforts to bounce back? We'll talk about that and more on today's episode of Locked On Sooners.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. Go subscribe over there. Hit that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. And thank you to you, Sooner Nation, for just all of your support over the last 3 years since I've been hosting the show, since Josh has been on it, May of 2022. And then since we launched the YouTube in November of 2021, we reached 1 million YouTube views over the last year and 8-9 months. So thank you so much for being a part of this show and making this show what it is. We love doing the show every Monday night, 9 p.m. Central on YouTube live. So again, thank you for being here. We've got a lot to talk about. ESPN updated their matchup predictor, which is one of the things I kind of like to look at with the win probabilities and just kind of what their expectations are. They run a billion simulations, and Josh is here in the chat for right now. He's doing a high school softball broadcast for the Ref. Make sure you follow him over on Twitter at Josh on Ref. Also check him out on the KREF Sports app as well for all his play-by-play action. He's going to try to be with us a little bit later in the show, but thanks for being here in the chat, Josh. Appreciate your support. But ESPN Matchup Predictor is just an interesting way to kind of gauge how the analytics judge teams going into a season, and then gives us a good kind of week-by-week update of where teams are at. Now, generally, Oklahoma is going to be viewed pretty favorably when it comes to recruiting, recent history, things like that, all things that are taken into consideration with the ESPN Football Power Index, which helps to inform the ESPN Matchup Predictor. They were heavily favored in most games last year. We saw how that turned out. So it's just kind of an interesting thing to look at in 2023. Again, they're heavily favored, or at least heavily projected to win 11 of their 12 games. I guess you could probably bet which one isn't going to be the one Oklahoma's favored in. The interesting thing from the update, though, is that in every game that Oklahoma was projected to win, they lost some win probability in all of those games. So in 11 of their 12 games back in the spring, they were, heavily projected or had a heavy win probability for for all of those games, but they kind of lost some win probability in the meantime in the update, even though they rose substantially in the ESPN Football Power Index. They kind of dropped a little bit. But what was interesting is in the matchup predictor with Texas, Oklahoma gained some win probability. Now, I've been boastful here on Locked On Sooners, talking about how I do believe that Oklahoma wins that game. I know it's one that you don't want to predict because it's easy to see how that one could go wrong. But man, I just really feel like this is going to be the game that really shows that Oklahoma is different. Oklahoma's back. Oklahoma never really went away. They just had a down year. It's going to be that game against Texas. It's the one that everybody's pointing to, the one that everybody's looking at, because it's going to be the one that has the best view of what this team is in 2023, because that's going to be the most talented team that you see all season. You don't see Tech, you don't see Kansas State, you don't see Baylor. That Texas game really shows you everything about what this team is going to be. So to gain some probability points, I think that's intriguing. I think it helps support my idea that Oklahoma can beat Texas. Again, I think having Dylan Gabriel in that game, and even if you don't have Dylan Gabriel, having a much more capable backup in that game, like a Jackson Arnold, is going to give you a much better chance to win that game than what you had a year ago, when this coaching staff just didn't trust Davis Bevel to throw the football. For better or worse, that was it. This year, that's not going to be the case. You're going to have a capable quarterback if it's Dylan Gabriel, because he's playing well and he's healthy. If it's Jackson Arnold because he's having to step in, you're going to have a much more capable passer on your hands going into that game. You're not going to have to sit there and run the Wildcat because you can't do anything else. But I just think it provides a little bit interesting, an interesting little nugget there. But ESPN elsewhere, Mark Schlabach of ESPN fame is also projecting a bounce back for Oklahoma. He says there's no way a Brent Venables coach defense can be that bad again. In the former Clemson defensive coordinator's first season as OU's coach, the Sooners ranked 122nd out of 131 FBS teams in total defense, allowing 461 yards a game and 30 points per game. That's the thing we've been talking about all offseason, right? Is there's no way they can be that bad again. It was bad, like historically bad, as bad as things got at times during the was it Mike Stoops era. Man, it was that bad. Like, it was not good. You're not winning football games when you're giving up 40 points to Kansas. It's just going to be really, really hard to do. So I do think that this bounce back that's coming, this much better year, this significantly improved year that's going to come for the Oklahoma Sooners in 2023, a lot of it's going to be because of the defense. I mean, even if the offense is as good as it was last year, this team is going to be pushing for 9-10 wins and maybe even more than that. And I've seen a lot of predictions and projections for Oklahoma's schedule. I've seen a lot of people throwing out 9-3, 10-2, talking about realistic predictions for the Sooners. And it makes me wonder, and we'll dig deeper into this here in a second, but it makes me wonder, what are the multiple games that Oklahoma could lose on this schedule? That's the part I have a hard time wrapping my mind around if you're looking for a realistic prediction of what Oklahoma is going to do this year. I've got them at 11-1. Whenever I predict their schedule, that's kind of where I land, because they're going to be favored in every game but Texas. They're going to be the better team in every game but Texas. Does that mean that they're going to win? No, but they should win, right? And if you're looking at predictions, TCU is going to be a good team, but are they going to be as good as they were last year? I don't think so. Kansas? Jaden Daniels plays at LSU. Jalen Daniels, he's going to be good, but is he going to be enough to propel Kansas to a win over Oklahoma? That's the one I have a hard time with. Yeah, the trips to Cincinnati and to Provo and to Stillwater, I might be coming around a little bit on Oklahoma State, sheerly due to the fact of Brendan Presley, Colin Oliver, and if Alan Bowman can stay healthy, that really sets the tone for that team this season. If they can get a healthy Alan Bowman, it's going to be a completely different Oklahoma State offense than what I'm expecting it to be. The question is, can they get a healthy Alan Bowman? Because we've seen in his career that he hasn't been able to stay healthy for a full season. And that's really been the downside of his career, because he's been good. He's been a gamer. He's been tough. I think back to, I can't remember what season it was. It was so long ago, maybe the 2018 season. And Oklahoma's playing Texas Tech. And he's having a really good game. He's actually got Texas Tech going toe to toe with, I guess it was Kyler Murray back then, going toe to toe with the Sooners until he gets hurt. And then Oklahoma takes over in that game and just kind of runs away with it. So unless he's able to stay healthy, I just don't trust Oklahoma State's backup quarterback situation enough to have them as serious contenders in the Big 12. And I just think that Oklahoma is going to be a better team and going to win that game. So as we kind of dig into, okay, who are the teams that we think Oklahoma might lose multiple games to? I want to see what y'all think in the comment section over on YouTube. Tell me, okay, if we think Texas is one of the teams that Oklahoma can lose to, who's the other team? Now, you could lose to anybody any given Saturday, right? But realistically, who's the team on the schedule aside from Texas that you look at and you're like, that's a tough one. That's a coin flip at best, or they're a better team than Oklahoma. Let me know in the comments section. We'll talk more about that. We're going to talk some recruiting stuff here in a little bit as well, and some other news and notes that have dropped over the last 48 hours or so on today's episode of Locked On Sooners. But first, let me talk to you about our friends over at Betterhelp. This show is sponsored by Betterhelp. That's Better, H-E-L-P, Betterhelp. If you are having a hard time trying to make a decision and you just feel like you need someone to talk to, man, BetterHelp is the place to go. Sometimes in life we're faced with tough choices and the path forward isn't always clear. If you're looking, to take a new job, there was a time where we were, getting ready to transition from, Oklahoma City area to Tahlequah, and we weren't sure what to do. And I mean, yeah, you have to have people that you can talk to and walk through the decision-making process sometimes. And yeah, sometimes that's a loved one. Sometimes it needs to be somebody outside of your house that helps you get a clear picture for what you're looking at. And that can be BetterHelp. If you haven't ever had counseling, or if you've been thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online and designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Let therapy be your map with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedoncollege today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedoncollege. Again, get 10% off your first month. So yeah, you guys are dropping in the comments BYU. I mean, they've never beaten BYU. So that one feels fairly obvious that Oklahoma could lose to. Keaton Slovis is an experienced quarterback, having played at USC and then again at Pitt, someone that could cause problems for Oklahoma if the defense isn't as good as we think it's going to be this year. And even if it is as good as we think it's going to be this year, is it going to reach the heights of an elite defense that maybe an experienced quarterback like a Keaton Slovis can't take advantage of? There's a physicality element going there as well. BYU is going to be a very physical team. They're going to be tough. They're going to be well coached. They're going to be disciplined. We're still transitioning away from the Lincoln Riley era. There's still a physicality that needs to show up on Saturdays. There's still a toughness. There's still a discipline that needs to show up on Saturdays that is a hallmark of a Brent Venables defense, and an aggressiveness. If you can't match what BYU is able to put out on the field, man, then that's going to be a problem. We've seen what that style of team can do to Oklahoma at times, whether it was Baylor, back in 2021 or even 2022, whether it was Iowa State at different times in the Matt Campbell era, when they've had really, really good physical fronts, it's caused problems for Oklahoma. And so BYU is definitely one of those teams that could cause Oklahoma fits. I Am Sooner Nation's dropping Kansas State. Thankfully, they don't play Kansas State in the regular season. The only time they would see Kansas State is if both teams were to make it to the Big 12 title game, which I think it's possible. It's certainly possible. Kansas State, the Big 12 defending champion, but that's the only way they're going to run into Kansas State. Thankfully, I don't want to see them on the schedule anymore. That's a good one. The Big 12 did Oklahoma a favor when they took Kansas State off of the schedule and left Texas Tech and Baylor and all that. So that's really, really good for the Sooners. The UCF one is kind of intriguing because, again, you've got a really, really well-coached team with Gus Malzahn, a guy that's been at the Power 5 level, that's had a lot of success. And then you got a guy like John Reese Plumlee, who is probably one of the 6 best quarterbacks in the Big 12 this year. So and he's an athletic player who runs the ball well, was UCF's leading rusher a year ago. And we saw what happened last year when Adrian Martinez ran wild on the Sooners. Who else did they struggle? Max Duggan. They struggled to contain him. Even in the non-conference at times, they were struggling to contain UTEP's quarterback, Gavin Hardison. So UCF, I mean, that could be a pesky or potentially, potential trap game. One of those games that you may not expect to jump up and bite you. And yeah, Hank, I agree with you. I don't think any of those new Big 12 teams are going to be ready for the gauntlet that is the Big 12. But I think UCF, because of Gus Malzahn and the athletic quarterback, is going to give them a chance to potentially cause some problems in that game in Norman. I think Oklahoma's the better team. What about a team like, what about Kansas? Jalen Daniels, he's really good. And that's another really, really well-coached team with Lance Leipold. Again, I just, with Kansas, man, it's going to be an interesting environment. That's a team that is going to be geeked, and a fan base is going to be geeked up to host the Sooners when they come to town in Lawrence, and when they get to Lawrence. But I just don't know if they're going to have enough talent to match Oklahoma's defense, which again is going to be much, much better. That's about it. I really don't. I mean, I don't think Cincy. I don't think that you're going to really get a lot of problems from Oklahoma State. I don't think they're going to have any problems in the non-conference. I think it's going to be a 3-0 non-conference schedule. SMU is going to have a good offense. I think Tulsa is going to have a good offense with Kevin Wilson as head coach. I just don't know if they're going to be good enough to overcome the Oklahoma Sooners. We saw what this team was able to do in the non-conference last year. They were absolutely dominant. I just don't think it's going to be that good and good enough for SMU, for UCF, for Tulsa, for BYU or Cincy to upend the Oklahoma Sooners. It just doesn't seem like they're going to be talented enough right now. Will they win all those games? That's the hard part to say, right? Because we've seen Oklahoma teams that were the more talented team, that were arguably the better coach team, lose games that they shouldn't lose. They lose these inexplicable matchups, and you're like, how did they drop that one? You can go back to the 2020 season when they dropped games to Kansas State and Iowa State back to back to open that Big 12 slate. Or you go back to the end of the 2021 season. They absolutely should have beaten Oklahoma State and Bedlam that year, but somebody else was thinking of something else in that one probably. But, or that Baylor game, it was just two really weird games where, Baylor just out-toughed them and Oklahoma State was just the better team in the second half, which that's one area in which Oklahoma is going to have to be better this season, is playing well in the second half, not fading down the stretch. And hopefully the depth is going to be the key contributor to them being more talented and better in third and fourth quarters, because that was a big problem last year, whether on offense and defense. They just weren't consistent enough throughout games to close games. And I think because of the depth that they've added, whether it's, the 2022 signing class, it's now going to get an opportunity this year, or the 2023 signing class coming in and Brent Venables being less shy about playing those guys, or the transfers, they're going to have so much more depth. It's going to give them a better opportunity to finish games better. And so I think that's why I'm so confident in Oklahoma really having I don't want to even, it's weird. You don't want to use the word resurgent because it's not like they went away for a decade. It's 1 year. They had one really bad year where they lost a lot of close games, but yeah, I that's kind of where I feel like. I know a lot of people want to hedge and say, 10-2, 9-3, but man, I got Oklahoma at 11-1, and I have a hard time taking them off that prediction because the only team that I know for a fact is better than them is Texas. And that's on paper. That's not even Texas is better, because we've seen quote unquote better Texas teams lose to Oklahoma a lot. So on paper, Texas might be better, but on paper is not going to mean jack when they roll into the Cotton Bowl in the October 7th. And I do believe that Oklahoma is going to win that game. Yeah, 405 boys dropping the 10-2. If y'all got your predictions, I'd love to hear them. I get that. Like, I get that 10-2 is a reasonable prediction for this team, because, I mean, when was the last time that they only lost one game? You got to go back to 2019. That seems like forever ago. It really does. Like, Jalen Hurts taking Oklahoma to the playoff and running into Joe Burrow and LSU. I mean, that seems like 10 years ago, but it was just, 4 or 5 years ago that happened. But that was the last time that Oklahoma got through a season with with one or fewer losses. I mean, it's been forever since they've gotten through a regular season undefeated. So I get it. I get where everybody's coming from with the 10-2, the 9-3 stuff. I have a hard time getting there because, and yes, I'm an optimist. I'll fully admit that a lot of times I see things as glass half full, and I see the potential for better. And so I'm usually going to cling to that. I totally get that I'm a little bit more optimistic than most people are going to be. But it just comes back to, I just think this team is better than everybody on paper. I really do. And Clark D mentions it. We see what being good on paper has got Texas the past decade. Yeah, I mean, we're still waiting for Texas to be back. And everybody assumes that Texas is going to be back this year. Will they be? That'll be the fun question to answer. I mean, they're going to have a great opportunity to announce that they're back when they play Alabama in Tuscaloosa in week 2. But if Oklahoma can get through the Red River rivalry win that game and even even look good in a loss, then I think we'll feel a lot better about where this one's going. We'll talk a little bit of fall camp now. So I know in our last episode, we talked a lot about Cheetah and the linebacker depth, and a lot of folks commented that Justin Harrington is being touted as a superstar by Brent Venables. We hadn't heard those comments yet through Gabe Eichert and Teddy Lehman. But, I mean, if Brent Venables is saying that Justin Harrington is going to be a superstar, we're ready for it. It's just, he's been highly touted for years now, right? This has been a dude that's been expected to have this big breakout for several years. And I mean, I'm all for it. Like, let's see it happen. I'm ready for it to happen. And he's shown signs of being an impactful player, a guy that can play well in coverage, a guy that's a physical tackler. He's incredibly athletic and he's fast. And if this is the year that he puts it all together, man, their defense is going to be really good. I'm looking forward to seeing that happening. And the reason why Oklahoma's defense is going to be better is because guys like him, guys like Grayson Halton, guys like Isaiah Coe and Jordan Kelly, Ethan Downs, Billy Bowman, Reggie Pearson, the list goes, Gentry Williams, the list goes on and on and on. These guys that we've been expecting to have really, really good seasons or careers for the Sooners and haven't yet fulfilled that promise. This is going to be the year that they actually do that they fulfill that promise. This is going to be the year that we see guys that, okay, we've been waiting and waiting and waiting, and now they're going to have that breakout. Jeff Levy talked about everybody looking better on the offensive side of the football, just from a execution standpoint and from a physical standpoint. They just, as a group, look better. We've talked about how they're going to have 5 defensive players over 300 pounds this year. That's huge, man. Having guys that are going to be able to muck it up in the middle is going to make things a lot more difficult for opposing running games. Getting the depth that they have at the linebacker and the secondary level, it's crazy. And even up front along the defensive line, to where, I mean, Brent Venables said you could have a completely new starting front 7. And I think that's very possible. If Ethan Downs starts, it wouldn't surprise me, but it also wouldn't surprise me to see, a starting front 4 of Rondo Bothroyd and Isaiah Coe and Jordan Kelly and R. Mason Thomas or Adepoju Adebawore, or name another defensive end that could start. I mean, there's Deshaun McCullough. Like, if Justin Harrington's going to get all these cheetah snaps, then you better throw my man Deshaun McCullough out there at the edge, because he's a good pass rusher and you got to get him on the field in certain situations. Or Grayson Halton, that defensive tackle. Like, there's potential that you could have a whole new starting, front 4 at linebacker. Danny Stutzman's going to start, but you're going to have 2 new starters opposite on either side of him. You could see it, it could be Jaren Kanak. It could be, it sounds like it's going to be Justin Harrington at Cheetah. And even if it's not Kanak, it could be a guy like Kobe McKenzie, who we might be sleeping on a little bit. This is a guy that has the physique and the physicality and the athleticism to be a terror at Mike linebacker for Oklahoma. Now, is he as athletic as a Jaren Kanak? No, but Kanak's not as big as Kobe McKenzie. But there's an opportunity here for you to have a really, really dynamic linebacker group, because you have some really dynamic linebackers in McKenzie and Kanak and Kip Lewis. Like, that's a really, really dynamic group that you're going to be able to deploy even in rotational roles. Like, even if Kobe McKenzie is only coming in, for 20 snaps a game, 25 snaps a game, that still is better than what you had a year ago when you're kind of going to true freshmen, when you need to pull Deshaun White off the field, or you're pulling David Agwebu off the field. You don't have an experienced player. Now, Kobe McKenzie may not have had a lot of playing experience, game experience, but he's got a year and a half in the program now. That's going to make him a much better player and a much better option for this team as they go forward. The secondary, we've talked, man, ad nauseum about the secondary and how it's going to be better, because the depth is better. They're a more experienced team. The talent is better. And so, you look at the games in which Oklahoma might lose. I have a hard time following that, because it's just going to be a better team, a much better team. Sorry, I'm a little bit mealy mouthed tonight. Was getting my son put to bed. as we were, as I was getting ready to come record, and just haven't quite gotten it all together just yet. But if you've got comments in the chat and you want to hear what, you want to throw a question at me, you got a fantasy football question even, I'd love fantasy football. It's that time of year. If you haven't had your fantasy draft yet, I'm sure it's coming up soon. I've had several fantasy drafts and dynasty leagues and things like that over the last few months. So it's been a fun time for me. And I got a couple more over the next couple of weeks, but the Arkansas State game, man, that's coming fast. As we're recording, we're just 12 days away from the start of the season. And I'm really, really looking forward to seeing how this team comes out. If they come out sharp, if they come out flat, if they, one series isn't going to be the telltale, but it's going to be an intriguing aspect of watching that game. They're going to dominate Arkansas State. It's just a matter of how much they win by. But I really, really want to see this team pitch a shutout, go through this game and not allow the Red Wolves like any breathing room whatsoever. It's that scene from Remember the Titans where Coach Yost gets them on the sideline. He's like, I want you to blitz all night. Don't let them gain 1 yard. I'll pull every single one of you if they do, sort of a thing. Like, that's the kind of game I want to see Oklahoma play. Yes, we won't be able to take a lot away from that game, but we will be able to identify guys that are looking good, looking fresh, looking better, at least against that kind of a competition. And then as it steps up against Tulsa and SMU, you'll start to, and then Cincinnati and Big 12 play, you'll kind of get a better feel for what this team's going to look like. But man, I cannot wait for that Arkansas State matchup. It's going to be super, super fun to watch. It's football season. Football season is here. Week 0 is here on Saturday. It's going to be great. And this is it's going to be my 4th season covering the Oklahoma Sooners, here for Locked On Sooners. And man, I'm just so thrilled to be able to do this again, covering another Oklahoma football season. Whichever way it goes, we'll have it covered here on Locked On Sooners. Recruiting. This is a big week for the Oklahoma Sooners on the recruiting front. Andy Bass scheduled to commit on August the 23rd. Everything is looking like it's Oklahoma on that front, but you got to worry about Kansas State. You got to worry about Syracuse. This is a kid that is an incredible athlete, someone who's going to make plays as a runner, as a receiver, and could even make some plays as a quarterback or as a throwing receiver or throwing runner at times, or could run some wildcat quarterback for you. Could be really, really fascinating. Is a really, really, really good player. And I don't think we should look at him as some sort of backup option. Yeah. If you would have gotten Caden Durham, you probably aren't getting Andy Bass, but they like Andy Bass a lot. And there's a lot to like about the player. He's as Daniel mentions here, he's a stud. That's the best way to put it. The dude is a physical freak. He's able to bounce off tacklers. He's able to make people miss. He's able to, run away from guys. He's fast. He's agile, good lateral agility as well. So a very, very fascinating option for the Sooners and DeMarco Murray and Jeff Lebby in their offense in the future. And then on Saturday comes the big one. And that's David Stone. It's the recruitment that and the commitment that will be heard around the world. I think everybody and their mom is going to be tuned into that one, including David Stone's mom. Everybody's going to be excited to see where the former Del City native, now IMG, I guess he's still a Del City native, but he plays his football at IMG Academy, where he goes. Oklahoma has been considered the favorite for the longest time in this recruitment, the hometown team, the relationship with Todd Bates. You've had to deal with Michigan State pursuits. You've had to deal with Miami pursuits, and Miami is really seemingly taking a big step in that recruitment over the last few weeks, with everything that Miami can do, whether it's NIL, we might clown on Miami for not having been good in recent memory, but Mario Cristobal, he's a good coach. He really helped keep Oregon afloat and get them back into the national conversation after, Chip Kelly, years ago, Chip Kelly left, things didn't work out. Mario Cristobal came in and had them as a really, really good program for a lot of years, and then made the move over to Miami. He's a really good recruiter, a really good defensive coach. And so it doesn't surprise me that Miami is in the thick of this one. You're going to be going up against Miami's and Alabama's and, Georgia's for every kid, but this is the one that you got to win. We talked about it last week. If there's one recruitment that you have to win in the 2024 cycle. It's David Stone. It's the one that you've been favored to win for the longest time. It's the one that you're the front runner for. Not getting a commitment from David Stone would be like tripping 10 feet from the finish line in the 100-meter dash. That's kind of what it would be. I don't know. I don't think that they will. I think that they're going to win this one, but I've been wrong. I was wrong on Williams Nwaneri, but I just think that ultimately it'll come back to Oklahoma, but Miami is a real threat. And until he commits and then until he signs, I think Miami will continue to be a threat. But I really do think that, on Saturday, one, we're all going to breathe a breath of fresh air, no matter which way this goes, because it'll be over. And I think all of us will be at least glad that there's a decision that was made for one of the, again, most high profile recruitments in recent history. 405 Boys says John, Miami is selling the beach and NIL. Yeah. I mean, beaches are cool. I like beaches. I like to go to the beach, and NIL matters. And one thing that's fascinating to me is as the NIL game has become part of the game, it's become legal. It's become out front and open. And I know a lot of people don't like it. Coaches don't like how it's being run and operated, how there's different rules for different states. Legislators don't like it. Fans don't like it. But it is what it is. It's part of it. It's all in the game now. And when we follow recruiting and we follow commitments and things like that, I think we need to kind of come to this place where it's okay to admit if a kid decides to take an NIL package as the biggest selling point in his recruitment. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's above board. It's not anything different than any of us might do in our own line of work. I've got a great job that I really, really like right now. But if somebody came and offered me more money than what I was making now, I'd have to consider it. And if I didn't take it, that's one thing. But if I did take it, who could blame me? Because that's just how things work. That's the capitalistic nature that we live in right now. And as and I don't like to tell people how to feel or how to react or how to do, but I'm just trying to bring a new perspective to this, because we shouldn't criticize kids and their families if they decide to take an NIL package, because for some families that literally is life-changing money. The $500,000 NIL deal, shoot, $100,000. Like how many of us would benefit from $100,000, $50,000 right now in your pocket? All of us would. I've been having car problems the last 3 weeks. I could benefit from $50,000 in an NIL package. And so while we may not like where it's at, I feel like it's one of those things that we have to be mindful of and not just automatically kind of denigrate or criticize a kid or his family because they decide to take an NIL package. It's just part of the game now. It's why, it's why coaches jump from job to job. The money matters. It's why, Oklahoma and Texas are going to the SEC. It's why USC, UCLA, Oregon, and Washington are bumping to the Big Ten. It's all about the money. And now the kids can be a part of getting that money now. And so we shouldn't criticize them. And if that's the way it is, and Oklahoma is losing recruitments because of NIL, then Oklahoma needs to up its NIL game. That's not on the kids. It's not on the family. It's not on Miami. It's not on John Ruiz. It's not on Missouri. It's on Oklahoma. And I know they don't want NIL to be the number one factor for a kid committing, but at the same time, they got to realize that if it is a factor, they either got to get their money up or they got to get out of the recruitment. That's just the reality of the landscape of college football right now. And it's love it, hate it. NIL is here to stay. It's inevitable, as Thanos might say. And so I get where people are coming from. I get, this idea of you want someone to love the program be about the program, be about the coaching staff. And for most kids, that's going to be enough. For most kids, they're going to be, they want to go to Oklahoma for Oklahoma. They're going to go to Oklahoma for Brent Venables and the coaching staff, or for playing time, or for opportunities. You know, you look at the NCAA 14, list of like priorities as you're going through your recruiting in the off season. There's going to be a lot of reasons why a lot of kids choose a school, but we got to be okay with one of those reasons being NIL. And at some point we will be, and I know it's still fresh, it's still new, and it's different, and it's changed the face of collegiate athletics, just like the transfer portal has, just like college conference realignment has. But it's just part of the game now. Zeus saying, preach. Amen. Dalpoas saying, I'll sign today. Yeah, I mean, it's okay. I think we need to quit like thinking of NIL as a dirty word, and even like quit like hiding it under the premise of every recruitment. I mean, it's just part of the game. It's as important as the visits. It's as important as everything. Daniel says, show me the money. Absolutely. Like, this is exactly what's happening across college football. The players are now getting an opportunity to cash in on the $1 billion industry that is college football. So why are we going to hate on a player for that? If Williams-Nwaneri gets a better deal up at Missouri to go play football, man, all power to him. Shoot, if I'd have had the abilities to, play collegiate athletics and get paid to do it, that'd have been nice. I did not. I had to take out student loans. Mark Hampton mentions, when I went to college, just the loans was enough to catch me, and I'm still paying on them. That's the reality of a lot of people. That scholarship, it matters. That scholarship is a big investment a university is making into an athlete. I'm not here to downplay that at all. The scholarship is huge, and a lot of people don't get the opportunity to go to school for free. I didn't. I had to pay for school. I had to pay for a master's degree too. And so a lot of kids are getting that opportunity to go to school for free. And for a lot of people, they think that should be enough. And I get where those people are coming from too. I really do. That's a great opportunity that these kids are going to have to play college football, which, I mean, it is a job. It is a job. It's a full-time job, being a student athlete, with meetings and workouts and extra work on the side and practices, going to the medical facilities, things like that. You have to be on task because there's a lot to do. And so I get the college scholarship should be enough argument. I totally get that. At the same time, it's hard for me to look at, the Big Ten receiving $1 billion media rights package and think that the kids shouldn't be able to earn something, at least be able to autograph stuff. The Terrell Pryor stuff from a decade ago, when he traded some signed memorabilia for some tattoos. Like, what do we care? Who cares? Let the dude get his ink. Let him pass off some signed jerseys to the tattoo artist. Like, why was that a thing? Because the NCAA is old. But now we're in a world where that doesn't have to be a thing anymore. And things can be more common sense. And it's good for the game that the players get an opportunity to do that. Because they are the reason why college football is college football. I know we've got some big name coaches like Nick Saban, and the brands are popular, but the brands became popular. Sure, the coaches mattered, but the brands became the brands because of the players. ZS mentions, don't forget Rhett Bomar. 100%. 100%. This is now a part of the game, and I don't want to spend too much more time on this, but if David Stone does commit to Miami for NIL, let's not do the thing where we knock a kid because he chose NIL. Let's not do the thing where we say, oh, he's not as good as we once thought he was because he chose NIL, or he doesn't have high character because he chose NIL. Because I see that argument sometimes on social media. I do. I see, oh man, they must they don't have the right character. They're not a good fit because they chose NIL. No, to me, that's nonsense, man. Like it's very high horse, if that makes sense. We're getting on our high horse about kids choosing NIL. And if Oklahoma wants to be a part of that, like Chris says, they got to up its NIL game, because that's the reality. Now, I hope that David Stone doesn't choose Miami. David, if you're listening, which I know you're not, I hope you choose Oklahoma. But if you decide to go somewhere else, it's all part of the game, man. It's all part of it. It's okay. And it's going to be okay for Oklahoma because they've got a strong foundation as a program. Will it suck if they miss out on another 5-star? Absolutely. I will be eating so much crow on the social medias for that. But I'm still a believer in Brent Venables. I'm still a believer in Todd Bates and Miguel Chavis, and I'm a believer in what they're building. I really believe in Nigel Smith as a prospect. Man, you know my affinity for Jaden Jackson. You know how much I like that kid. That dude's going to be a game changer. Don't let the star status fool you, the ranking fool you. That dude's going to be a game-changing defensive tackle for the Sooners. And so even if they do miss out on David Stone, which I don't think they will, but even if they do, it's going to be okay. We got a college football season that's coming that could change a lot of things if Oklahoma is as good as we think they're going to be. Man, and that's really all I got for tonight's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in and being a part of the show. We are, again, so thankful for you supporting this show every day, watching on YouTube, watching or listening on the podcast side. You are what help us to keep going. Your encouragement, your kind words in the comments, in the replies, showing up on Monday nights at 9 p.m. Central Time. It helps give us that extra burst of energy. It's like, when the players walk into Gaylord Family Oklahoma Memorial Stadium and walk onto Owen Field and they hear the roar of the crowd, the thunder, the cannons being shot off by the Roughnecks, Boomer Sooner playing by the Pride. They get that extra juice. That's what Josh and I get as we gear up toward football season. You all give us that extra juice to keep going every single day, keep putting out quality content. So thank you so much. If you're not subscribed to the show, make sure you subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. Follow Josh on Twitter at JoshOnRef. Follow myself on Twitter at John9Williams. The show is at Locked On Sooners, and we'll be back for more Oklahoma Sooners discussion. We'll talk more OU football again, 12 days. Yeah, sorry, Mark. You're right. Can't forget the schooner after every touchdown before the game, running the ponies. That's right. Cannot wait to hear Toby Rowland say, put the ponies in the barn. It's going to be a wonderful day. Again, thank you so much for being a part of the show. Oh, Josh is jumping in. We're going to go a little bit longer. That's right. You thought we were done. Josh is jumping in here. Let me get all this straightened out real quick because my man Josh Helmer is here. And he's live, just getting done with high school softball. Josh, what's up, man?
What's going on? Good evening. Hope everybody's doing well. Nice to be with you. Sorry I missed the first however long. I would have been here 10 minutes sooner if 7-Eleven was not an absolute disaster this evening. So other than that, everything's good. How we doing?
Yeah, everybody got to get them slushies when it's 105 outside.
Yes, it was. We didn't have stalls working, and it was a whole thing going on. But what have I missed? How's everything going?
Well, you missed me just about to close out the show, and then you jumped in like at the buzzer. There's Kobe from the corner. No, so we talked, where ESPN stands in the matchup predictor, or where OU stands in ESPN's matchup predictor, and then I just went on a big long rant about how it's okay if kids decide to choose NIL as the reason that they decide to go to a place. Like in the new era of college football, NIL is a part of the game. And I've been seeing these takes at times on social media where people want to criticize or, denigrate or question a player's character because NIL was probably or likely the driving force behind their commitment. And I'm trying to get here and say, no, it's okay. Like that's just one element that's of it. and it's part of the game now. And we don't need to do this thing where we say they're not a fit for the program because they chose NIL.
Well, and don't fool yourself. Oklahoma's playing the NIL game too. And the unveiling today, we talked about this, I think last week we brought it up, John, but today, the Schooner beer, right? Hey, everybody, go grab yourself a Schooner. It didn't say directly that it benefits name, image, likeness, but I don't know, maybe I'm speaking out of turn here, and I'd like a little clarification on this. But, I would think that with Oklahoma's NIL laws the way they are now and things kind of under one roof for Oklahoma a little bit, that, the sales there of the Schooner beer hopefully can help a little bit with name, image, likeness. Again, I don't have that on verified authority. I'll do some more digging on that front, but you see Oklahoma trying to be creative, John, trying to do some different things to, again, up its portfolio, right? Add a couple extra checks to that checkbook in that wallet. So Oklahoma's playing the game, and you're not going to get everybody. I know that everybody wants these 5-star talents, Waneri, Stone. I'm right there with you. Oklahoma needs them in order to get over the top to go win a national championship. But, Oklahoma went and had a very, very successful transfer portal haul. Oklahoma does have some nice pieces in this class already, John. So if, and again, we're going to see about David Stone. That's not just done. It's going Miami's direction, right? I mean, we've thought all along that Oklahoma was the perceived leader there. So it's going to be tough to overcome that for Miami, even though he's tossing up the U and we hear that the family is kind of pushing him and pulling him in that direction. And, oh, by the way, there might be name, image, likeness involved. You name it. It's still going to be tough to overcome Oklahoma come Saturday. We're going to find out. Obviously, if it's not OU on Saturday, then, oh, baby, it's going to be a nightmare come, next week's live show.
Yeah, it will definitely be a tough one. But I also kind of went and said, I think that they'll be okay. You want to get David Stone, and you got to win these commitments, and you got to win these recruitments. But if you don't, I still think it's going to be okay. The other thing we talked about, Josh, was kind of the buzz that's coming out about Justin Harrington. Just after we had our show last night, all these comments and quotes came out about Justin Harrington probably being the starter at Cheetah, and Brent Venables saying through Gabe Eichert and Teddy Lehman that he's going to be a superstar.
Well, it's if it comes to fruition there, and obviously what it would mean for a Dasan McCullough, who is the other name there at Cheetah. The good thing for Dasan, I think, is he's of course got the background from Indiana at edge, so I don't think it totally rules him out of the equation to still get significant snaps and significant field time this season for Oklahoma. But man, it would be a terrific story if indeed that is the case with Harrington. And if it's come from the head football coach, okay, there's a pretty good chance that that's going to be the case for Justin Harrington and OU. I mean, just the winding road of it all, the fact that, a couple of springs ago and a couple of fall camps ago, it's like each one, well, Justin Harrington, hearing all these good things about Justin Harrington, and then it doesn't materialize. And of course, the winding road of leaving and then coming back and sort of having to earn your way back into the good graces of Brent Venables and this coaching staff. So from that, it would be an awesome story. And again, all we've heard is the size, the versatility. We've heard great things for a long time. It just hasn't totally come together. And yeah, maybe this is the year that it does. And again, I think because of the different traits that McCullough has, now all of a sudden, okay, I mean, what does that mean for him? Does he move to one of the other linebacker slots? Is that going to move him up front along Oklahoma's defensive line in some pass rushing situations? I mean, there's a lot of angles to it.
I sure hope so. I was telling my guys over at Sooners Wire, I said, if the buzz on Justin Harrington is true, then I need to see a lot of third down packages that have R. Mason Thomas and Dasan McCullough on either side. Lori's asking, do we get David Stone on Saturday?
I want to say yes.
I want to say yes too.
I want to say yes, but I mean, I'm leaning the opposite direction just because it feels like there's some late momentum, and I don't know if it's just the whiplash of the last however many recruitments that I got to see OU win one of these before I'm done. I'm putting my hands down on the table. I'm raising my hand, whatever you want to say. I'm over it. I can't sit here and on any platform, oh, Oklahoma's getting this guy. I'm not saying that again until they go get one of these guys.
Right. I'm at 60% on David Stone. I was much more confident weeks ago, but I do think that this is kind of the storm before the calm. If to mix up a metaphor there, or to mix up a phrasing, you always hear these big storms coming towards the end of a recruitment. Sometimes they end up being true, like with what happened with Williams Nwaneri in Missouri, and sometimes they're not. Peyton Bowen, let's say, Peyton Bowen was one of those that was, trending away from Oklahoma. There was all this buzz going everywhere else. And then ended up with Oklahoma. So it's going to be fascinating to see how that one plays out. I know we're all going to be like eagerly awaiting his decision and that Hayes Fawcett commitment edit for sure. The other thing that we discussed, I don't think David Stone comes to Oklahoma, sadly, but if we go 10-2, could see him flip, same as Nwaneri.
Thank you, Dakota, for that comment, by the way.
Yeah, Dakota, thanks for that. I just don't like banking on flips, man. I really don't, because they're the exception. They're not the rule. Yes, you got the Peyton Bowen flip, and that gives us like a sliver of hope that you can flip a Nwaneri down the road. But again, I don't think that's the rule. I don't think you want to bank on that. You do want to, if you're the coaching staff, you're going to keep pursuing. Just like Williams Nwaneri said last week, they're still pursuing me. But you don't want to sit here as a fan and hope that you're going to get that one. Because I think 99% of the time, you're going to be let down a little bit. But it's certainly within the realm of possibility.
We just got to play football. And
got to play football.
This Stone thing could be so nice, or it's going to be just a total disaster. And the reality of it is, we just got to see this program. And I said this earlier today on the radio side. We've just got to see Oklahoma go play good football again and see Brent Venables and this coaching staff. And I'm not saying that you don't need 5-star guys. You and I and everybody under the sun knows Oklahoma's got to be better recruiting those guys and closing those recruitments off. But at the end of the day, the transfer portal still exists. There's another signing class after this one. If we can just see Oklahoma making marked improvement defensively, that will, I think, alleviate so much of the pressure and stress of these, because all we can talk about right now is, hey, what's going on the trail? And, largely it's been really good for Oklahoma, save for the positions that are at a premium and the recruitments that have been at a premium in Hicks and in Nwaneri and maybe in Stone. But, man, I'm just so ready, just individually myself. And it's not a recruitment swinging this way or that. I'm just kind of tired of talking about it at this point. I'm ready to see this program play football again and talk about the results on the field.
Yeah, and thankfully in 12 days we get to do that. We get to see them dominate an Arkansas Red Wolves team. And that's the thing that I'm looking forward to. And I want to get into a little bit deeper discussion on our next show with you on this. It's the idea that, okay, if 9-3 and 10-2 are reasonable expectations for Oklahoma and a reasonable prediction for Oklahoma, okay, who are the teams they're losing to? Because you look at it on paper, and it's hard to find 2 or 3 teams that they're going to lose to. And I kind of had my spiel about it. And if you want to take the time to do it now, or we could save it for our next episode or not, but I'm with you, man. It's football season. It's football time in Oklahoma. And man, I'm so excited to see what this team's going to look like. The secondary, the linebacker crew, the defensive line is going to be really, really good. I really think that the offensive line is going to be improved. Savion Byrd, we heard, is up to 305 now, which that's huge, man. A guy that plays with the physicality that he plays with, I think is going to create one. He's going to be a fan favorite after this year. And I think he's kind of going to be Oklahoma's next first round offensive line selection.
I think there's a great chance of that. The nastiness that he plays with is so fun to watch, man. Just getting violent in the run blocking game in particular.
It reminds you of like Quentin Nelson.
Yeah, in Oklahoma, OU needs that guy, especially on the interior, man, where if you want the foundation of your program to be about running the football and stopping the run, you need a guy that's not afraid to go mix it up, get a face mask on a face mask, and, block through the whistle. I like the fact that occasionally, maybe once or twice this season, he might get a late hit just from blocking through the whistle. He's just violent in that regard.
On that note, one of my favorite highlights in Big 12 history is watching Colorado center Andre Gerard back in the early 2000s, push a Nebraska defensive lineman through the back of the end zone all the way up to the wall where the stands were. Like he must have blocked the dude for 20 yards. I mean, it was crazy. Maybe 30 yards, something like that. It was absolutely crazy. But I was like, dude, come on. Sorry.
That's just dominating another human being, right?
And that's great. What I want to see out of Savion Byrd this year. I want to see that level of tenacity.
Games that Oklahoma could lose, okay? And do not mistake this for games that OU will lose or that I think Oklahoma's losing. Games that, in my mind, I can even get to a place, okay, I could see a scenario where Oklahoma loses that game. At Cincinnati, Texas, at KU, maybe at BYU and at versus TCU. Those are the only games on the schedule that mentally I can, and I know that maybe you say, well, you just listed off 5 of them, but that's even that mentally I can get to a place where OU could lose the game. Who do I think OU's losing to? I don't know that I think they're losing to anyone. And I hate to say that after, I love to say that, but I get that it sounds a little crimson and creamish, but honestly, I don't know that there's anybody on the schedule that, if things go well and if things improve the way that they should, and with the transfer portal additions that Oklahoma's made and the offense and the players that they have back, okay, Texas, because everybody tells me Texas is supposed to be really good. I don't know that I think Texas is going to be really good. I love Xavier Worthy. I like the tight end that they have, but beyond that, I mean, am I in love with a bunch of the other pieces of Texas? I got to see more from Quinn Ewers. So there's not a game on the schedule that I don't look at and feel like Oklahoma conceivably can and will win. If you ask me to pick it right now, I'm probably saying 10-2, just to be more on the realistic end of the spectrum. But one loss is totally doable, I think, for Oklahoma against this schedule, and a Big 12 championship, I think, is totally doable against this schedule and with what they have, John, both offensively and defensively on campus. I believe that.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right in that you can talk yourself into multiple outcomes, even undefeated. And we'll do that on our next episode, Josh, where we say, okay, here's how Oklahoma goes undefeated, and here's why they go undefeated in 2023, because I think that's going to be a fun exercise, because there's definitely a path for them. And I mean, you look at that Texas team, and yeah, they're good, but they were just 2 games better than Oklahoma last year. So are they really that much better than Oklahoma? We're going to find out soon, but that's going to do it for tonight's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the show. Again, thank you so much for helping us get to 1 million views on YouTube. Such a huge milestone for us. We're so proud and we're so thankful just for all your support and all the encouraging words. As you were coming in, Josh, I was telling them just how much their presence here on Monday nights, their comments in the YouTube section, their subscribes, all that gives us energy and gives us that extra push to keep going and get ready for another season.
Well, and look, for those that are third segmenters that hang around through everything that's going on in these broadcasts, we appreciate you. And if you're an everydayer, then you're like, oh, well, should I comment on this video? I comment on every. We love it. It's great. And obviously, for us, it helps us in terms of the algorithm and all of those fun things. It gets us in front of new eyeballs and in front of new ears. So we just want to say we love you guys. Thank you so much. It's cool. It's fun to get to do this show and watch it continue to grow. And a million is a milli, baby. A milli here, a milli there. Thank you, little Wheezy.
That's right. So yeah, we'll be back for more Oklahoma Sooners coverage this week. Follow Josh on Twitter at JoshOnRef, here Monday through Friday from 9 to noon on the KRF Sports app. Follow me on Twitter at John9Williams. You can read my work covering the Sooners at Sooners Wire. But for Josh, I'm John. Hope you all have a great night and a great week. Stay cool out there. It's a hot one. Boomer Sooner.